Welcome to Journey to Earth, a short film that incorporates both live and animated footage. In the next 6 minutes, I will be explaining to you how I created each of the elements that can be seen throughout the film. There were a number of different elements and skills that were used in the video. These include graphic design, animation, filming, character rigging, video editing, photo editing, and audio creation. The first stage of creation was graphic design. This was where I created all of the assets that were going to be included throughout the video. Some of the more basic elements were used with the shape and pen tools. These elements were then joined together using the Pathfinder tool to create the image. Other things like the alien were made completely from sketches. There was a lot of planning and trial and error that went into the creation, and this meant that I had a clearer understanding of what I wanted to create. This is one of the hardest elements to draw due to the complexity of the shapes. In some aspects, like the world, I traced off references to ensure that the look was as realistic as possible. For more details on how the graphic designs were created, please see page 58 of the folio. The next stage of production was animation. This is where I animated all of the assets that were going into the scenes. This involved the flying, map, and closing montage of photos. One element of After Effects that was essential to the creation of animation was keyframing. Keyframing allowed for the creation of a sequence of events with different elements and allowed for control of what happened to each. As you can see in the videos, these were used in the making of the map. Other elements that were used in the making of the map was use of the 3D tool and lighting tools. The 3D tool allowed you to use more dimensions to make an object look more realistic. This, paired with the lighting and camera tools, allowed for a more realistic animated scene. The use of the camera tool was essential to the montage of photos at the end. This allowed it to have the look of falling photos. For more information on the production of this element of the video, please see page 60 of the folio. In the video, you can see the setup that I used for the creation of films. I used a camera, tripod, and microphone to ensure the best quality of production. There was a lot of careful planning that went into this stage to ensure that I used the right locations to create the look that I wanted. In the rigging of the alien character, I used both Adobe After Effects and Adobe Character Animator to do so. In After Effects, I used a plugin called Do It, which allowed me to be able to create lifelike limbs and allowed for movement to be easier to animate. Once the limbs were created, I used the controller tool to create reference points that I could later use in the animation process. This made the process easier as it meant the arms moved naturally as a human's would, and I didn't have to control them independently. In Adobe Character Animator, motion tracking was used to track the movement of my eyes and mouth, and this was directly transferred to the alien. This was an easy way to animate as it meant I did not have to individually animate each mouth movement and eye movement. As well as this, it created a more realistic and natural look. For any more information on character rigging, please see page 63 of the folio. Alterations had to be made to the alien before each set of animating. Different elements had to be removed, and as well as this, there were different perspectives on which way the alien was looking. A lot of the time, I took screenshots of the scenes that the aliens will be in, and this allowed for a reference point of how big the alien needed to be and the positions that they needed to be in. Once the character was rigged, the use of keyframes allowed me to create the individual movements that the alien did throughout the scene. This was done in After Effects. In some stages of animation, I had to use a mask tool. This allowed animated content to go behind elements of the scene that were already there. This created an overall more realistic effect and made the animations look like they were part of the scene. In After Effects, I used a large amount of motion tracking to allow the alien to follow elements of the scene. This was done with a plugin called Mocha AE and allowed for easy motion tracking of objects. Once I had animated each of the individual scenes, I compiled them all together in Premiere Pro. Due to the fact that the scenes were taken in different locations and at different times of day, I had to use color correction to ensure that there was continuity across the different pieces of footage. As well as this, I had to insert the alien's voice audio, and I had to ensure that its mouth movements lined up with the audio. The photo editing stage was done in Photoshop. I used a number of different tools including exposure, brightness and contrast, and vibrance to create the look in the photos that I wanted. This created continuity across the images and made them of a higher standard. However, I ensured that minimal changes were done to still make sure it had an overall realistic look. There were two different forms of audio that I created. the alien's voice and the backing tracks. I used my own voice as a reference point for the alien's voice and then used a number of different tools in GarageBand to create a high-pitched alien voice. A lot of trial and error went into the creation of the background music, and it took me a while to create the sound that I liked. I used a number of the synths, bass and beats found in GarageBand to create the soundtrack that I wanted. I also played with the volumes and pitches to alter the original sounds to create a soundtrack that was best suited to the video that they were created for. For more information on the audio creation, please see page 67 of the portfolio.